that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 447th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell. We are recording this on the 2nd of December, so the news that we're doing starts on the 24th of November. I should make this clear. It starts with blog entries at my blog that happened on the 24th of November. The blog is called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And you can go down there someplace on the screen and find a link to a BCTV site where you can, I'm sorry, you can get to a place, you can get a link to the file that you can download from BCTV.
I was just going to mention that, yeah, because some of these files that we talk about are very well worth visiting, and
absolutely.
Some of them almost mandatory.
Yeah.
And almost all of them have a lot of information there.
Yeah, they have most of them have a lot of information. And there's also a file that you can download that has basically the content of our show. So we're starting on Wednesday, November 24th. If you go to my blog, by the way, there's a calendar, and you could click on November 24th, and you would be given 15 articles, links usually to 15, sometimes as few as 10. But you can find the article that we're working on.
That's your blog.
At the blog.
And this show is the best of the blog.
This show is the best of the blog, yeah. Okay, our first item, let me put up a picture that is there, is from Clean Technica.
Well, let's see if I can't get this picture up.
What a good idea.
Looks like a stone fence to me.
It does. Why don't you read the title and then we can find out what it's all about.
Power producers had to pay to send electricity into the South Australia grid.
What do you do if you've got a gigantic coal-burning power plant and it's sending 1,000 megawatt hours per hour of...
You make people buy it if you've got the power.
Oh, man.
And that's what was happening.
Big plants in South Australia had to pay to operate when the state, quote, became the first gigawatt scale grid in the world to reach zero operational demand when the combined output of rooftop solar and other small scheduled generators exceeded all local customer load requirements.
Well, as I'm always saying, gigawatts is bigawatts, baby.
Yeah, that's right. And this meant that they had too much power going onto the grid.
I was just going to say that. South Australia has a serious problem. It is producing too much power.
Yep.
It is challenging for market operators to maintain system strength and grid stability.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's not a blessing.
Well, it is and it isn't. The thing that you can do with almost all forms of renewable energy is tell them to scale back or just shut off. And they can do it really, really quickly.
That's wasting money.
Yeah,
you can save it. That's what batteries are for.
What they have to do is get more batteries. And this is the grid that has what was just a couple of years ago the biggest battery in the world by far. And it's not big enough anymore.
We've seen a picture of that, haven't we?
A bunch of times. Yeah. Okay.
Well, wind and solar alone accounted for more than 60% of the local demand.
Yeah.
In the last 12 months. So they're getting on the ball with renewables.
They're putting more on, and they're putting more on, and they're putting more on. And we will get to another
they'll work it out.
Article soon, because there's this thing about Tasmania coming up that we have to explain. Anyway.
Well, we got another picture here.
We have a picture here. And I chose this picture because I didn't like any picture at the article.
Well, that's Antarctica.
That's Antarctica. And even though it's Antarctica, and nobody lives in Antarctica except a few scientists and penguins, But even in Antarctica, they have a tank farm for oil. Huh.
Yeah.
So this is from CNN.
Biden announces release of oil reserves, but says gas prices will not drop overnight.
Yep. President Joe Biden announced the release of emergency oil reserves to combat high energy prices, though it will take weeks to affect the price, he said. The DOE, that's Department of Energy, will release 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And you'd think that that would have an immediate effect on the price, but apparently it doesn't.
But they're saying it isn't going to.
Yeah.
This is the largest release from the reserve in U.S. history.
Well, how about
He
that?
dumped a lot of them. The administration's actions, this is from the article, will not solve the problem of high prices overnight.
Yeah,
Okay, and the prices have been high.
they have been.
In the long term, we will reduce our reliance on oil as we shift to clean energy. And oil-producing countries have not ramped up the supply of oil quickly enough to meet the demand.
Well, they had to ramp it up because we are recovering from,
But they didn't do it quickly enough.
I think they did that on purpose.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
That's OPEC and that's Saudi Arabia and
Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Russia.
Yeah.
Well, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said that gas and oil companies have financially taken advantage of the high prices. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do a thing like
Yeah,
that.
it sounds like cheating,
Let's
doesn't
move
it?
along here. We got another picture of Old Crow, Yukon.
Old Crow, Yukon. I think.
That's the next town from Shenley's, and Four Roses is after that.
Oh.
The silent strength of indigenous...
I wonder how many people watching this show understand the joke you just made. Shenley has not been sold for a long, long time. And
Shows you how long it's been since I drank, huh?
yeah, and what was the other one?
Four Roses.
Four Roses. I don't know if that's made anymore. But
These are bourbon brands.
they're bourbon brands
And
that
Old
existed.
Crow is a brand of bourbon.
Yeah, it was at one time, a long, long time ago. It might still be. I don't know. I don't drink bourbon. I never really did. I think I've had one shot in the course of my life.
Well, the article is entitled "The Silent Strength of Indigenous Renewable Energy Microgrids," and I'll explain what that is.
Okay, but I should mention that picture of Old Crow. I think every building in town is in it.
Oh, it is. Yes,
This is a
push the
very
picture
small
up.
town.
This is a fly-in town. You can't drive in.
Yeah,
And it's north of the Arctic Circle.
yeah.
And it's close to the U.S. border. It's in Yukon.
It's close to the Alaska border.
Alaska-U.S. border.
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah, okay. And you were going to say,
The silent strength of indigenous renewable energy microgrids.
Okay,
and then
this
you're going to
is-
read what it says,
Yep.
and then I'll explain what that gobbledygook means.
You got a plan. This is from Yahoo News Canada. For the first time since the 1970s, silence descended on the tiny isolated village of Old Crow in Canada's Arctic in August. The incessant drone of a diesel generator was silenced for the first time in decades as the nation, and this is what they call a First Nation, brought the microgrid online, powered by solar energy.
This is good. This is a long article.
Yeah.
There's a good 2-minute video that's worth watching. And they refer to indigenous clean energy. That means something. It refers to renewable microgrids developed and operated by and for indigenous nations.
Right.
So that's what's going on here.
Yep.
And this fly-in community, I already said this, is about 60 miles east of the Alaskan border and 70 miles north of the Arctic Circle.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
They're north of the Arctic Circle. Why did they choose solar?
Well, all summer long they got a lot of solar, and all winter long they got none.
Yeah, but what do they
There's
do
a couple of weeks there in the wintertime where the
when
sun
they have
doesn't
none?
come up.
What are they doing during the winter?
Diesel.
Okay, so the diesel is going to get turned back on,
Yep.
and then the people are going to riot for the rest of the winter.
Well, the project's got 2,000 panels, and they, as the article says, maximize solar generation during the long daylight hours of the Arctic summer sun.
Yeah.
And there's short hours in winter. And this whole array ties into a 600 kilowatt battery.
Okay.
So they're saving as much as they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I wonder if they're going to put up wind turbines. They would keep them going during the winter.
they would.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's windy up there.
Well, you just think about the idea of flying in. I can see on that picture on the right
nobody's
side.
got a car, you know.
But yeah, but look on the right side of that picture. There's a
Little scooter.
there's this little scooter there.
That's how they get around. Nobody's got a car.
Yeah, but the gasoline for that has to be brought in by airplane.
Yeah.
The oil for,
Can't drive in.
heating a house has to be brought in by airplane. The oil for running a diesel generator has to be brought in by airplane. Everything that requires fossil fuels is going to be a multiple of the price of what we would pay here.
Yeah, you can be sure.
And where do they get their income? I don't know. Somebody there is making.
Well, I would bet that they're
making a
all
living.
indigenous people and they don't have an income.
Well, by golly, how do they pay for their oil?
I'm sure that the government's got some sort of subsidy for it.
They must have. Okay. Anyway,
Well, let's
you
move
have more?
along here.
You want to move
We
along?
got another picture of something.
We have a picture of the
funny
Block
looking
Island
thing
Wind
here.
Farm, and you know the Block Island Wind Farm. We have had pictures of that so many times.
That's the whole wind farm.
That's the whole wind farm. That's right. You can see there's 5 turbines,
And it's right near Block Island,
which is
is about halfway between New York and Massachusetts,
yeah. It's
in the Block Island Sound.
that's right. That's right. So this is from CNN, and you have a title.
I do. I got to pull it up here. Federal officials greenlight a wind farm off the coast of Rhode Island in a quest to expand renewable energy.
Yeah, and it's not expanding that wind farm. We're just using that wind farm as a picture. Federal officials are greenlighting plans for a wind farm off the Rhode Island coast as the Biden administration aims to grow renewable energy capacity. The South Fork Wind Farm will provide enough power for 70,000 homes on Long Island.
It's interesting that the power's going to Long Island, but the wind farm closer to Rhode Island.
Well, yeah, this is all,
The market is
The
there.
market.
This
Yeah,
is Eastern Long Island, which is in a development spree right now.
and who knows? There's plenty of ocean out there for a lot of people. So
Well, the project has been adjusted to avoid, quote, high-value fishing areas and shipping lanes.
right,
And fishing interests say the project will generate, quote, a small amount of energy and has little or no proven benefits towards mitigating the climate crisis.
this.
Well, that's a little propaganda. I
Yeah, it
think.
is. This reminds me a little bit of a John Wayne movie, and I don't remember what the name was, but people who were farming, who were harvesting, I think it was shrimp. No, it was sardines, I think.
Okay.
But they were harvesting ocean product.
Okay.
And John Wayne was in a company that was putting in offshore oil wells.
Oh boy.
And the fishermen were complaining bitterly about what that was going to do to the fishing. So he didn't know what to do about
It actually improves
this.
the fishing.
Yeah, well, he didn't know what to do about this, but he happened to be falling in love with a fisherman's daughter, as I recall. Anyway, he got into a conversation with her father, who did not know that he was involved in offshore oil, and he said, "I'm in offshore oil. I wonder if you could give me some advice, because you know about the waters around here. We've got all this problem because of these shrimp or sardines or whatever it was that just gather.
In our way.
They're getting in our way." Anyway, there it is. So, did we read the?
Well, there's a few things here. We read the title, I think.
Oh, let me read the. Oh, I did read that about.
Yeah, you read it.
Okay.
Yeah, 70,000 homes on Long Island.
70,000 homes. Should we go on?
Well, there's a few notes I got here.
Okay.
I already read one of them.
Whoops. I'm sorry.
Not approving a wind farm.
I'm having a little trouble with the picture. Go ahead.
Not approving a wind farm could lead energy developers to construct new power generation in the areas that, quote, might be fueled by natural gas, oil, or coal.
Or nuclear. That's another one.
Well, they didn't say that in the article.
No, okay.
Just 1 year ago, there were no large-scale offshore wind projects approved in the federal waters of the United States. Now there are 2.
Now there are 2.
Okay, but there's more in
This
the...
is pathetic when you consider
there's more on the
and-
horizon.
Germany, and I mean, it would be interesting to know how much offshore wind is approved for the United States versus the amount approved for Ireland.
Ireland doesn't have any offshore wind.
It's gonna.
It's gonna. They're
Yeah.
planning on it. But
Yep.
well, late last week, officials broke ground on a 800 megawatt vineyard wind project off coast of Massachusetts,
Yeah.
which is not what
Not
this
this one.
article's about. This
Yep.
is a South Fork wind farm. Now we're talking about here, when you put them all together, almost a gigawatt.
Yeah.
Okay. The Biden administration has announced moves toward a large wind power project in the waters between New York and New Jersey, the New York Bight. And that looks like it's going forward.
And if you don't know what bite is in this context, look up BIGHT.
Yeah, it's not BITE either.
No, and it's not BYTE either. It's BIGHT, and
That's a large bay.
with a very, very, very wide mouth.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, we should probably move on to a picture.
Well, I will just mention that we're going to be revisiting this again in this show.
We will, and not just in this show. But anyway,
But we will be doing it in this show.
Well,
I was going to put the picture up, but you done do it or done it.
you know,
already.
it's magic. We have an item from CNN that involves the White House.
White House creates a new climate-focused division within the Office of Science and Technology Policy.
Underscoring its commitment to tackling the climate... man, I can't talk today. Underscoring its commitment to tackling the climate crisis, the White House announced it has created a new climate-focused division within its Office of Science and Technology Policy and tapped Stanford professor Sally Benson to lead it.
They talk a little bit about Sally Benson. Apparently she's got some pretty good credentials. There's a 1-minute video in this that's interesting. It shows you what the dried up reservoir in Lake Oroville.
Yes.
It's kind of sad. For 1 minute you can
we're going to
cry.
have a sad picture of Lake Powell coming up
Yes,
next.
that's coming up. Well, the Office of Science and Technology Policy Division is developing national clean energy innovation plans to ensure America's continued leadership in clean energy innovation and ensure the United States gets to net zero emissions by 2050.
Okie doke.
Let's see, I got a couple more notes here. Do I need them? Yeah, the administration's 4 climate goals are, and they're quick. 1, raising global ambition on containing a rise in temperatures.
Right.
Okay. 2, getting countries to commit to taking action this decade.
Yes.
Important.
Yes.
3, driving ahead on finance and adaptation efforts to vulnerable communities. So they're helping them pay for this stuff. And 4 is implementation of guidelines for the Paris Climate Accord, which just went over, which we've talked about. And we got a nice picture of Lake Powell coming up.
We do.
And there's
It's
Lake
a good
Powell.
picture, but there's a big bathtub ring on that.
There sure is.
CNN.
I've been on the other lake down there, and it was a bathtub ring, the one by Vegas.
Mead?
Lake Mead, yeah. San Francisco declares a water shortage emergency and urges residents to cut usage.
California has had a rough year, suffering through high temperatures and low precipitation, both driven by the climate crisis. Because of this, San Francisco has declared a water shortage emergency and is calling for a 10% reduction in the regional system, across the regional system.
There's a neat video at CNN. So see the dried up reservoir that's shutting down this power plant. It's only a minute.
Yeah.
It's a quick one, but it's scary.
It is. That's right.
Lake Powell and nearby Lake Mead, which is the nation's largest reservoir, have drained at an alarming rate. And that's not hyperbole.
I guess it's not.
The reservoirs, fed by the Colorado River, provide a critical supply of drinking water and irrigation to 2.7 million customers. And the California drought has contributed to a devastating fire season.
Oh, boy.
Which we've talked about on this show.
Many times. Okay, our next item is from the BBC.
Let's see if I can't find
And
out what's going on
this
here.
is a picture of a hedgerow.
Trying to figure out what that thing is in the background.
That's a castle. It could be an abbey. It
Could be an abbey.
It
yeah.
could be a monastery. It
Looks
could
like
be,
a church, but it's
well,
big.
It almost looks like a cathedral, but
it's not.
It's not. I believe it's a castle, and this comes from BBC. And what do you
Wouldn't be a
have?
castle. It doesn't look like a castle. It looks like a palace.
Okay,
What's the difference?
a palace is where a palatinate person lives.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
How about that? Which would mean an emperor, a king, or a person who is given the title palatinate, which is not common not
Okay.
common in the UK.
Well, the article is entitled Britain's Ancient Fortresses for Nature, and there's a picture of one of a fortress for nature right in the foreground, and it's called a hedgerow.
Actually, two of them. The one in the foreground looks very, very tame, and
Well,
the one in
been taken care of.
the one in the
is wild.
background, actually, the one in the foreground should not have been taken care of. It's too tame. But the one in the background is the way they usually
The way they
look.
normally look.
Yeah. So,
Though made by man, you're supposed to read
oh
that.
yes, sorry about that. Though made by man, hedgerows form a vital reservoir of biodiversity in human-dominated landscapes where many species might otherwise struggle to survive. By nurturing pollinating insects, they can enhance the yield of crops, and they do it all while pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. I lived in Devon, and Devon is one of the counties in hedgerow country.
Is
And
it, huh?
everything.
The hedgerows everywhere.
Hedgerows everywhere, and the break in the hedgerow in the foreground in this picture, which you could drive a tractor through or whatever, those kinds of breaks did not happen. The hedgerows were.
You had to climb over them.
You had to climb over them,
style.
and when they had stiles, and when I asked a farmer, "What do you do when you have a field full of sheep and you need to move it?" He said, "You carry it across the stile."
Wow, but one by one, huh?
One by one. Now, the stile, is not like a flight of steps going up with a flight of steps going down, which you often see in the movies when you see
I've
stiles.
seen them in person.
That's not the way they're normally built. They're like rocks projecting from the hedgerow that you can step
Okay.
on, and you would never find them if you didn't know.
I've gone on them too.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yeah, you see both of these things in Ireland.
It's amazing that a farmer would carry a sheep up a thing like that and then down the other side.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they did it. Okay.
Well,
you have more?
I got a couple of things here.
Okay. Beautiful picture of a bird in this.
Of a bird?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to touch that.
Okay.
Informative image in this article. It says hedgerows have varied benefits for their ecosystems. And
Yes.
It's an image, It's
Yeah.
like a graph.
Yeah.
And it's also a nice image of a dormouse. And I never knew what a
Dormouse.
dormouse looked like. They're cute.
Well, in some parts of Europe, they eat them.
Do they, huh?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Edible dormice. I remember I took a German course, and one of the stories that we had to read had a character in it who had a cape made of the fur of dormice.
What?
Yeah, it's like thousands of little pieces of fur had to be stitched together laboriously.
Well, the article mentions that hedges can be financially worthwhile.
Oh boy, yeah.
Okay, they can attract beneficial bird species that eat pest insects,
Yep.
as well as lure flies and wasps that feast on crop-damaging insects like aphids. And they can also attract bees.
I want to point out you want the flies and the wasps.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm glad. They also can improve the yield of nearby crops by providing a habitat for wild bees
Now,
that pollinate other plants.
other plants, and they can pollinate plants as far as 3 miles away.
Yeah. Now this is interesting. Ecologists estimated that for a 1,000-foot hedgerow, these benefits would save around $4,000 in pest control and pollination costs over 7 years. So it repays you the cost of planting it.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on, Tom?
I think so. We can't dance.
We have a picture of a natural gas
Is that
plant.
what that is?
It's ugly as sin, I think.
Kind of ugly, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Okay.
German government deal, quote, 2030 coal phase out, but plenty of questions remain.
Yeah. An accelerated 2030 coal phase out is inevitable for Germany to meet the EU's environmental, energy, and climate targets and Paris Agreement goals. Also, coal profits have collapsed. By golly, we've been talking about that for a while. Coal is uneconomical, and subsidizing it would be an intolerable waste of public money.
Well, they're using the accelerated coal phase out ideally, and I think that's weasel words.
Well, it is actually.
An accelerated 2030 coal phase out is inevitable in order to meet the EU's climate targets. So it's going to happen whether they want to or not.
Yeah, well, the other thing, though, is that
They're not making money on coal.
Andrea Merkel is out of the government.
Yeah.
And we've got this new government coming in, which has got the Green Party as one of its partners.
Yeah.
And so they've got...
Things are going to move in a different direction.
Well, I don't know about different. Merkel was pretty interested in the environment and safety, human safety and things like that, far more than some people that I could name.
Well, the deal seems to leave the door open for fossil gas to remain in the German energy mix. That's what I meant by when I said weasel words.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something about that, because the more gas they're using, the more they get pushed around internationally.
And a new deal means checkmate for coal in Germany, and sets a tone for the inevitable 2030 coal endgame across Europe.
Yep.
Well, coal just isn't worth. It's not economical anymore.
It's not economical. Okay, we have
money talks, you know.
A picture of the spirit of innovation.
Oh, this is nice. I like this. It looks like a World War II Spitfire.
Sort of, yeah, it does. It's a racing plane, specifically made to be racing, and this is from Clean Technica. The previous article, by the way, was from CNN.
Well, Rolls-Royce,
sorry,
that's the builder of the plane.
Yeah,
sets an electric airplane speed record.
Yep, and I should say I made a mistake. The previous article was from Clean Technica, so is this. After years of work on battery electric airplane, Rolls-Royce Aerospace put spirit of innovation into its extended flight in November. We reported the first flight of this plane.
Yeah, we did.
But it only lasted like 10
80
minutes.
80 minutes or something.
No, it's
like
very, very short.
Yeah, 80 seconds.
But it was in November with a goal to exceed 300 miles an hour. It actually hit 387.4 miles per hour, but also set records for speed and rate of climb.
They set the record.
Yeah, which was over
132 miles an hour. They really overlapped that record.
Yeah, that's right. And it was the top speed is not the speed of the record. The record was set over a particular distance. Rolls-Royce sent the record data to a certifying authority. So there you have the plane. And
well, they were pretty proud of what they did, so they wanted to make sure the world knew it and believed them.
Absolutely. I don't even know what Rolls-Royce is anymore. All these companies are being bought by Indian companies and Chinese companies and you name it.
Well, Rolls-Royce has for a long time been much more than just building an expensive car.
Yes. Go back to the Second World War, they were building Rolls-Royce engines for boats and for aircraft.
Well, they're big on engines, very big on engines, and big engines.
Big engines, that's right. Not the
like you find in a boat.
Yeah, not the kind of engines
not a boat, a ship.
You'd use for a chainsaw.
You know the difference between a boat and a ship?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. You're going to tell us.
Okay. A ship is a boat that's big enough to carry a boat. As a matter of course.
Basically, yes. A boat can be carried on a ship.
That's correct. Yes.
Well, the next one here, and there's a picture. Well, did we finish with this one? I guess we did.
Yeah, we did. There's the picture.
This picture up there.
Wait a minute, Tom.
Yeah.
If I have a toy boat on my canoe, does that make my canoe a ship?
I think it does.
Okay.
Well, we got a nice picture. What is that? Offshore wind turbine, huh?
I think it must be.
I think it must be.
This is a rare picture. Go ahead, Tom.
That's a wind project off Rhode Island, I think.
No, wait a minute.
It doesn't say.
No, it's not a wind project off Rhode Island. This is an actual photo of a wind project.
Well, the Interior Department approves a second major offshore wind project in U.S. federal waters. This is a little continuation of what we
It's a
started
continuation,
talking about.
yeah. This
Same farm, by the way.
It's the same farm. I made a mistake. I included this twice, but the gist of the article was going in a different direction. So, the Biden-Harris administration had a goal to deploy 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. As part of that, the Interior Department announced that it had approved in construction and operations of the South Fork Wind Project off Rhode Island. But of course, it was the second one, so they had previously approved the other one, as we had just said.
Well, the Biden-Harris administration has a goal to deploy 30 gigawatts.
30 gigawatts.
Which is a lot.
A lot.
That's a significant amount of offshore wind energy by 2030.
Now, I want to point out, 30 gigawatts is not the same as 30 1-gigawatt nuclear reactors in terms of its output. From 31 gigawatt nuclear reactors, you would expect about, you're going to have 90% of it going at all the time.
Well, it's hard to shut them off.
Well, they shut them off for refueling.
It's easy enough to shut them off. It's hard to turn them off.
Yeah, they shut them off every 18 months, every 2 years to refuel them, and then they're going to be down for weeks.
Yeah. Takes about 6
offshore
8 weeks
wind,
to do it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Offshore wind farms have a capacity factor of around 50%, which
I was going to say 60, but I'll take 50.
And which means that they're bigger than half the size of a nuclear reactor in terms of their overall output.
Well, the wind doesn't always blow.
Yeah, if you have one of these big offshore wind farms, and it's a big offshore wind farms,
it's always blowing somewhere.
Yeah, the wind is going to have a few of them might be down at any given time, but others in other parts of the wind farm will probably be going. Okay, should we go on, or is there more?
Well, let's see if I can't get this thing to scroll, because I thought I had some notes here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This represents the department's second approval of a commercial scale offshore energy project in the United States. 3 weeks ago they had none, now they got 2.
That's right.
So they're moving in the right direction.
Okay, our next item, we're up to Sunday, November 28th, and we have another item from
Funny
Clean
looking
Technical.
thing here.
That is Beijing. I mean, this is crazy. Does Beijing look like that?
It does now.
It does now. All my life I've thought of, when I shouldn't say all my life, but when I was young, I used to think of China as a place where people stood ankle deep in water while they were planting rice in rice paddies wearing conical hats.
That ain't no rice paddy, baby.
I'll tell you, China is a powerhouse these days. And yes, go ahead, read the title for
Let's see if I can't scroll to it. China advisor says energy crisis won't stall climate action.
That's good news.
Well, they're talking about China's energy crisis.
That's right. China's energy crisis won't derail plans for progress on curbing greenhouse gas emissions in the next few years. They have increased the output of coal because they had the same bounce back in the economy from COVID-19.
Well, they got a lot of coal.
They've got a lot of coal. They've got a lot of coal.
They use a lot
plants.
of coal.
So they're
stuck between a rock and a hard place.
In a sense, they are. A top researcher involved in drafting proposals had said this. The 2025 energy blueprint will be centered on prioritizing renewables and energy efficiency, he said.
Well, China is the world's biggest coal consumer.
Yeah.
And they resisted efforts at the COP climate talks to phase out coal decisively.
Yeah.
They're dragging their feet.
They joined India. India said, we don't want to say phase out, we want to say phase down. And when they heard that, the Chinese said, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So although the Chinese and the Indians don't usually agree on things. Okay, we are up to
Sunday, November 28th.
You must be reading over my shoulder, and you aren't over my shoulder.
There's a picture there of an oil rig. Let's get that picture up.
Yes,
there we go.
Good idea.
Looks like an oil rig to me.
Yeah, either that or a substation for an offshore wind farm. But we
Yeah, it
know
looks like that too, doesn't it?
we know it's an oil rig because we can see the drilling rig sticking up into the air on the top. Okay, this is from Clean Technica.
Well, it's interesting because it's an image of oil-stained sand in Naples, Florida. And Naples, Florida is 150 miles away from the deepwater disaster that caused it.
Oh, man.
So it's 150 miles in Florida. Naples is in southern Florida, and this oil rig was right up by Louisiana.
Well, what do you have for title?
Interior Department report finds significant shortcomings in oil and gas leasing programs. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Department of Interior released a report on federal oil and gas leasing and permitting practices after a review of offshore and onshore oil and gas programs. The report identifies significant shortcomings that should be addressed, not the least of which is that the people who are getting these leases are not paying very much for them.
Well, it's been a giveaway. It's been a giveaway. They've been getting the oil for very low royalty costs.
Yeah, like $1 a square mile.
I mean,
or
it's
something.
crazy stuff. I mean, you know, but they're buying the congressman. They got the money.
Okay.
Money talks. Nobody walks.
It does. Okay, we can go on if you don't mind.
I think we can. Let's do that.
This is a picture of the proposed, I believe, Victoria Big Battery.
Is that proposed?
I think it is.
It's a big battery. That's
It's a big
sure.
battery. This is in Victoria.
Well, every one of those boxes is a battery in itself.
Yeah, and each one of them is about the size of a shipping container, which means
Exactly.
it's a little bit smaller than a typical tractor trailer's trailer part.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, they're carried to the site by tractor trailers.
That's right. And this is Clean Technica.
That's
What do you
the
have
Victoria
for?
Big Battery, and it says hydro versus batteries. Tasmania pushes its undersea cable plan.
Now you remember I said we'd get back to Tasmania. Tasmania has an abundance of hydroelectric power, quite a bit more than it needs. It would very much like to sell some of the excess electricity to the rest of Australia, but there's a flaw in the Hydro Tasmania plan. The proposed Marinus Link would be up against big batteries. So,
Well, this Marinus Link is a 300-mile-long undersea transmission line,
which is not cheap.
which is not cheap. And they didn't consider the cost of batteries. And it's much cheaper.
Well, the cost of batteries probably was too high when that link was originally proposed. The price of batteries is crashing. It's just going down like mad.
Well, 1,500 megawatts of 8-hour battery storage is much cheaper to build than the Marinus Link. So that's what's going on here. In addition, the Tasmania electric system has nowhere near the energy capacity needed to supply that link. So
They would have to
whistling
build.
in the dark here.
Yeah, they would have to build a lot of stuff.
So
although-
Hydro Tasmania plans to store the power in Tasmanian dams.
Yes.
Okay, pump storage.
Yes.
Okay, so and this is probably the truth, Hydro Tasmania says both batteries and public storage will be needed.
Well, I think that may be true.
That's probably true.
Okay.
We got a nice picture here, another nice picture coming
And we're up to Monday, November 29th, and we have an item from Oil
Well,
World.
that's a drilling rig, and it's
That
ready to be towed to sea. So
Yes.
let's take a quick look at that because we're going to get rid of it in a second. And we're going to put these guys back on. Hey, you recognize those guys?
How did we get there? I was looking at a drilling rig. Okay, what do you got?
U.S. seeks to boost oil royalties to account for climate change.
Is that how they say
This
it in
is
Brooklyn?
interesting. That's how they say it in Flatbush.
In Flatbush. We're going to
Wouldn't
boost-
wait.
It wouldn't wait. We're going to boost the royalties. Tom and I both lived in Brooklyn at one time. He longer than I did, and
It's a different part of the universe.
it's a different part of the universe where people, by the way, speak Yiddish still, and that is one of the world's greatest languages.
It is. It's too bad it's disappearing.
Absolutely. I don't want Yiddish.
It's a very well. It's got a lot of words.
And it's got a lot of words.
Very,
It's,
very colorful.
it's very colorful.
And it's disappearing.
And it is disappearing. It's an endangered language. Well, it might not be endangered
Well,
yet,
for what
but-
it's worth, it's a dialect of German spoken by Jewish people.
Yeah. And it has probably as many Polish and Russian words in it as it does Jewish, and it even has English words. Do you know what the word is for the guy who lives upstairs from you?
Gott?
No. The actual person who lives upstairs.
No.
That's your upstairsiker.
That makes sense.
Anyway, go ahead.
U.S., I think I said this already, but I'm going to say it again. U.S. seeks to boost oil royalties to account for climate change.
The Biden administration...
We're going to give them more money.
What?
We're going to give them more money.
No, this is the royalties they pay us.
Aha. No, can't do that.
I fell into that trap the first time I saw this title too. The Biden administration issued a long-awaited blueprint for overhauling oil and gas development on federal lands. Now, we were just talking about this a second ago, but this is more. The Interior Department report recommends higher fees and more limits on federal oil and gas leasing to better account for climate change.
As I said before, they were getting away with murder. They were the 1/10 of what the states were charging for the same fees.
Yeah, and so on top of everything else, you have societal costs that come to about $1.30 a gallon. So they're paying $1 a year for pumping millions of gallons, and this is doing millions of dollars worth of damage.
Well, the recommended changes would reduce the land available for oil and gas development while raising the costs of that activity.
Yes.
The agency has halted the sale of new leases while conducting its review. And environmentalists are disappointed that the plan won't ban leasing altogether.
Yeah.
Okay, they claim that the federal fossil fuel leasing program has been a public subsidy for oil and gas.
I think,
and it has been.
Yeah.
No question about it. You look at the numbers, and like I said, they're getting away with murder.
Okay.
Well, we got a funny-looking picture here.
Of what are those?
Oh, gee, I don't know. It looks like a solar farm to me.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
This is from Market Watch.
Total Energy's name of a company launches its largest solar project in France.
Total Energies, which is
the name of the company.
Yeah, but it's probably, I think it's a subsidiary of Total, which is the big French oil company.
Oh, it probably is, but they didn't say that in the article.
Yeah, has launched its largest PV solar power plant in France with a capacity of 55 megawatts. So that's 11 times as big as the
one right here in Brattleboro.
Yeah, which was at one time the biggest one in Vermont. The solar farm is northeast of Gien.
That's what I got.
Loire, and has 126,000 PV panels spread out over 75 hectares, which is 185 acres. The plant will produce around 64 gigawatt hours of electricity per year.
Well, for what it's worth, a hectare, and this is 75 hectares, a hectare is a quarter of a mile, quarter of a square mile.
Quarter of a square mile.
Yeah. I should have done the math, but I didn't.
No, that looks reasonable to me. I mean, this is 185 acres, and a square mile is 640 acres.
Well, the plant will produce around 64 gigawatt hours per year, so this isn't playing games.
Yep.
The solar farm, which is 120, oh, you said that already.
Yeah.
3 square miles.
Okay.
Okay, will produce around 64 gigawatt hours per year.
Okay, we are up to Tuesday, November 30th, and we have a picture of nature's outrage.
Will you?
Put it up, and I'll. Okay, you. There you go.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, this is a stormy weather, and the article is from CNN.
Stormy weather. Tropical cyclones in Asia could have double the destructive power by the end of the century.
Wow. Tropical cyclones in Asia could grow to double the destructive power by the end of the century, according
I just said that.
Yeah, you did. I want you to know that I'm the chief head of the Department of Redundancy Department. According to research, based on data from 1979 to 2016, scientists say human-made climate crisis has already made them stronger, and I would guess...
Well, they're getting stronger,
Yeah.
lasting longer, and extending further inland.
Right.
This is bad news.
No, it's not good news. This is not good news. I mean, yes, you're right.
It's a nice video there. CNN meteorologist explains why tropical cyclones in Asia could double their destructive power by the end of the century. 2.5 minutes, I recommend you look at it.
Yeah. 65 miles farther inland, it means that you're reaching more people with the destructive power. It's like, kind of like...
It's getting places like Louisiana and South Florida in trouble.
The problem we had with Imelda was that Imelda went farther inland than most.
Bingo, and that's going to get worse.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Well, for what it's worth, this is kind of confused me. They're talking about cyclones.
Yeah.
A cyclone is a large-scale air mass that rotates around a strong center of low atmospheric pressure. We got cyclones going on all the time.
All the time.
But these tropical cyclones are the bad guys.
They're capable of being extremely powerful. And
Very
by the
powerful,
way,
and they can be very dangerous.
people, you know, I was born in Kansas. I was raised partly in Illinois. And I can tell you that in tornado country, people call tornadoes cyclones, but we always got corrected in school. A tornado is not a cyclone. It's too small to be a cyclone.
Too small to be a cyclone.
Yeah.
Well, there's a difference between cyclones, which happen all the time, and tropical cyclones,
Yes,
which is
that's
what
it.
this is.
There's
These are the bad guys.
There's an area around you know, in the Arctic there's a weather system called the Arctic cyclone.
Yeah, they got Arctic
and it
cyclones.
just goes on and on and on and on and on. And when you have one of these, what do they call it? A mass of air coming down from it's the
downdraft.
No, it's coming down from the north, coming south.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
They talk about the
I don't know the word.
Polar vortex.
Polar vortex, right?
That's part of that cyclone breaking loose and coming down here when
Okay.
it's not supposed to.
And
Okay.
This year, for the first time, one of these things hit the British Isles.
Okay.
They don't normally get this kind of weather.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got a nice picture
Our
here
next
coming
one
up.
is from Energy Storage News, and
This is a kind of confusing picture.
it's a confusing picture, so I made a second slide, and this is the second slide.
Uh-huh.
Now that island, which you see the irregular shape on the left, is an island off the coast of the. I shouldn't say off the coast of the.
It's down off the bottom of Japan.
It's off the bottom of Japan. You can see it in the bottom of that little picture there. It's a little bitty island that has 2 villages, I should say towns on it.
It does, yeah.
Total population is something like what, 10,000, 12,000?
12,000 people, I think.
So this
yeah.
is just about the same population as Brattleboro. And if you look at that island, you'll see that there are circular things all over it. There's about 30 of them. And
I don't know what they are.
those are nodes.
Oh, that's what these pictures are.
That's correct. Each one
Each
of those.
one of them's about solar storage, huh?
Each one of them is an energy system that could include wind generation, biodiesel, solar power. It could include connections to the grid.
So these people are taking
their whole stuff is very serious, and then each one of them can have a storage battery. And I want to point out, every one of those is connected to all the ones that are close by.
So they're all a whole bunch of interlocked microgrids.
And if one of them fails for some reason,
they get it from the other one.
the other ones can come in to help. So this means on this island, there is no longer any one big generating plant. And
distributed power.
importantly, there are no more big transmission lines.
Okay.
You know, would you like to get rid of all the transmission lines that run over the mountains in Vermont?
Well, I would. I've never liked transmission lines.
I would love to get rid of them. We might have to have wind turbines put up in order to get rid of them, but you know.
Well, there's people in Vermont that like power lines better than they like wind turbines.
Yes, and I think that if they knew how destructive power lines were, they would not. There was a really good story about a wind farm that was put up in India, and all of a sudden they had a lot of a bird called the The great bustard.
That's a bird.
It's a bird. The great bustards were dying, not because of collisions with the wind turbines, but because of collisions with the transmission lines that went from the wind turbines to the grid.
Wow.
So anyway, you got a title here.
I do.
And this is from Energy Storage
so I
News.
can find it. Japanese island will reduce power sector emissions to virtually zero with a renewable microgrid. What's renewable microgrids really?
Yeah, it's a bunch. Well, it's a microgrid that's made up
of microgrids.
Microgrids. Yeah, a tiny island in southern Japan, surrounded by a coral reef. How beautiful! Will be able to use renewable energy for its main source of power, thanks to a microgrid with battery technology at its heart. CO2 emissions will be virtually zero. Virtually zero being a quote. This is from Energy Storage News.
Well, last week, Energy Storage News reported that they got the same thing going on the Portuguese island of Madeira.
Madeira,
which is off the coast of Africa.
Song, Have some Madeira, Madeira. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Have some Madeira, Madeira.
And what the guy is trying to, he's trying to
glass of it here or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And he's got some. It's had something put in that he should not have put in, and she's going to wind up waking up dead in the morning. So that was the Limelighters, maybe?
I think you're right. I think it was, yes.
Okay.
Well, we got another picture coming up
We
here.
do, and this is a picture of cars.
And the one on the left is called the Max Out. And the one in the middle is the pickup trucks called the Surf Out. And the one on the right is called the Chill Out. This is, I'm not making this up.
No, you're not. But everybody else might think, Tom's making this up. I'm glad you said that. This is from Clean Technica.
Nissan will invest $18 billion to bring new EVs and more hybrids to market.
Just think what would happen if they invested $18 billion in Vermont. That's a lot of money.
New Hampshire would buy us.
Man, they'd try, but they wouldn't have enough money.
Well, there's a lot of pictures in this article, so it's worth looking up.
Yep. Nissan announced it has a new plan for its EVs. It's going to invest $18 billion over the next 5 years to bring out more electrified models. It says it will introduce 15 battery EVs and 8 models that feature the company's e-power hybrid technology by 2030.
Well, the article is very critical on Nissan. They say they're going about it wrong.
They said the Nissan rested on its laurels when it released the Leaf.
At the end of the article, they say they question whether it's going to be around in 10 years.
You never can tell. I mean, if you consider Tesla 10 years ago and Tesla today, if Nissan managed to turn it around, they could be the biggest company on earth in 10 years.
They could be.
Yeah. Okay.
If Tesla doesn't beat them to it.
Yeah, well, they've already got a...
Well, Nissan is wasting a lot of time. Compared to Tesla, forget about it.
Yeah, okay. I would say so.
Tesla is in the fast lane and pulling away while Nissan is bumping along in the slow lane and telling itself it has plenty of time. It doesn't.
Yes, well, the other thing is, if you look at the other car makers,
yeah,
they're in the middle lane, and Tesla is
way
out ahead of all of them. Okay, our next...
And they don't make an internal combustion car. All
not
they
at
make
all.
Is electric.
Not at all. I mean, the internal combustion car is basically a...
dead. It's a fossil.
I was going to say it's an anchor.
It's a fossil.
Yeah, it's a fossil.
It's an anchor. It is an anchor.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from CNN.
And it's a nice picture.
This is an interesting picture. How do I know that tanker is sitting immobile? Tom knows.
Well, there's no wake.
There's no wake. It's not doing anything. Okay, this is from, where did I go? There I went, CNN.
Amazon, Walmart, and the world's biggest retailers are making port congestion and pollution worse. That's Amazon, Target, Walmart, IKEA. These are the guys that are clogging up our ports.
And they're also, 3 of them are really bragging about how well they're doing.
Well, IKEA certainly is bragging.
Well, also Amazon.
And Amazon is,
and
yeah.
Walmart has been from time to time. The supply chain is facing major blockages. Container ships are heaping pollution into communities near congested ports. The biggest offenders are, unsurprisingly, the world's biggest retailers, according to a report.
Well, that would be Amazon and Walmart.
Amazon, Walmart,
Well, they're the biggest
IKEA.
retailers, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah.
Well, they said these backlogs at the ports are likely to persist at least through the middle of 2022.
Yeah.
And they're working like crazy to get over it.
And they've got Christmas presents on those ships that are not going to ship
They're
until...
not going to make Christmas.
No, they're not.
This is an interesting takeaway.
Yeah.
There was roughly $24 billion in goods outside the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach alone.
25 billion?
$24 billion.
$24 billion.
In goods, which they couldn't unload because they couldn't find wharf time.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay.
Bad craziness.
Well, we live in crazy times.
Who
I'm
was
gonna
it
go
that
to,
used to say bad craziness?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I don't remember
It was
either.
somebody used, that was his theme word.
I don't
Bad
remember
craziness, yeah.
I
Some kind of radio guy.
I don't remember.
Topaz Solar One is what they're looking at. It's there.
Yeah, that's a solar array in
How come they're not growing vegetables under it?
well, they're not very smart about things, and they haven't learned that you can do that.
That's almost mandatory.
It is almost mandatory, but it is not intuitively obvious that you can grow potatoes under solar panels.
I mean, why have one stream of money coming in when you can have two?
Absolutely. Okay.
Renewables are being installed at top speed, but still far too slow to fix the planet.
Yeah, the growth of renewable energy is set to hit an all-time record this year, but it's still failing, quote, well short, end quote, of what is necessary to reduce planet warming emissions in the way that is needed, according to the International Energy Agency. Now, I want to comment on that for just a second, because there was an article that came out today, and we will talk about it next week, I believe, which says basically that if the Biden bill that's up before Congress now that will build out whatever combination of things it is approved, if it's passed by both houses of Congress, it will double American the American
Renewable
build-out.
energy.
And same time, you got another article that says we need to double our build-out in order to reach.
So what's happening?
It looks to me like next year may be the year of where we start to hit what we need to hit.
Well, around 300 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity came online around the world in 2021.
How many?
300 gigs.
300 gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is roughly it's
a lot.
It's I say in the article that people can download, it's hundreds of nuclear power plants. Of course, that depends upon whether you're talking about big
This is worldwide.
little nuclear. It's
Yeah.
hundreds of Vermont Yankee nuclear power plants. It's many hundreds of the.
Do they consider nuclear renewable? That's still subject to.
It's not renewable, but it's clean. Is what
Clean is what it
the
is.
European Union says it's the cleanest energy source, and honestly, I think somebody bought and paid for that decision. Honestly.
Well, they're forgetting about the nuclear waste.
Not
Just
only
put it in
that-
the cask, leave it there.
Not only that, but they're forgetting about the fact that you can produce the same amount of energy more reliably, better quality, cheaper
With renewables.
with renewables. It'll cost half as much. It'll come online in a period that is half or less as long. And why would you pay extra for something that isn't as good? And it really is in no way as good. Okay, when I said that, somebody said to me, solar power takes a lot of land. Yeah, but you can grow potatoes below the solar panels. You can raise sheep. You can.
Well, you're going to have to do something. You're wasting a lot of land unless you put the solar on water. Solar
You can
on
do that, and you
reservoirs.
can grow fish under the solar panels too.
Well, they can put them on reservoirs, and they save the reservoir from evaporation.
Absolutely.
And the panels work better because they're cooled.
Absolutely. I mean,
It's a win-win situation.
It's a win-win. And then on top of that, they say, whoa, wind power, you're talking about huge amounts of land. The Roscoe Wind Farm is bigger than a Texas county.
Is it really?
Yeah, do you think that
Wow.
all the people in that wind farm moved out when it was built? No, they stayed there.
Yeah.
Their land usage was only reduced by less than 5%. So why not just continue to graze the cattle or raise the hay or
But
or
it doesn't
farm
seem
the
to
cotton?
bother cattle much.
Well, it doesn't
we've seen
bother
pictures
cotton
of the
much.
of the cows laying down in a field right directly under the wind tower.
It doesn't bother cotton. It doesn't bother corn. It doesn't bother a lot of things. So
Yeah, I hear
why
you.
are you counting that as?
It bothers Vermonters.
Well, it's not a use of land when you use 5% of the land, and it's not a use that you can use in a comparison of that nature.
No.
So anyway,
Well, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the world needs to cut the rate of greenhouse gas by almost 27 billion tons a year.
yes.
Current pledges are only getting there about a quarter of the way.
Okay, Tom, we have to go on. We're a little over time. Our next
Look at a
item
nice picture of Lake Champlain.
is, yes, it's coming up. And the reason that's pictured is because that is where the part of one of the
The
transmission
transmission lines, yeah.
are going to go across Lake Champlain, the full length of it. Isn't that scary?
Well, this is interesting because I looked at the map and they're going to go right down Lake Champlain.
That's right.
Then they're going to go overland until they get into New York State.
And then they're going to
around
go
Kingston.
under the
Then they're
Hudson
going to go
River.
under the Hudson.
Now, I want to point out, when the transmission lines are in, you won't see them because
No,
they'll be underwater.
They're underwater or they're going to be buried along railroad tracks.
Here is a piece from S&P Global. Contract.
It is from S&P Global.
By God.
Contracts approved for transmission lines to bring renewable power into New York City. Well, they've been arguing this one for 10 years.
Yes, they have. A New York state agency approved 2 contracts to deliver solar, wind, and hydropower into New York City via new transmission lines. Now, the New York Public Service Commission is considering approval, subject to a public comment period. And I got to tell
So
you,
they haven't approved it yet.
they haven't approved it yet, but I don't think you can shout loud enough to change the way this is going to go.
Well, the transmission lines will transport 18 trillion watt hours per year of upstate and Canada energy down to New York City.
I would bet 18, yeah, okay.
Terawatt hours.
Yeah. Okay, time to go.
Is this the last one?
It's the last one, unless you've got more stuff about this.
I've only got a few things.
What do you got?
Well, the Clean Path Project, which is what this is about, combines a 1,300 megawatt, 174 mile dual high voltage DC transmission line with over 3,400 megawatts of new wind and solar projects in upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
Availability and reliability is maximized by the existing Blenheim Gilboa pump storage facility.
There you go.
They got their act together.
They have
here.
thought this through.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the show. We want to tell you, have a thumping good week. There it is. It says so right there. And Tom and I will Tom and I will wave goodbye.
Adios. Y'all come back and see us now, you hear?
Absolutely.